Hello and welcome to this session in which we will discuss audit quality control standards. When do audit quality control standards matter? Well, if you provide assurance and attestation services, let's just call it audit. The AICPA requires you to have quality control system within your firm. Well, why? Well, because you are providing some sort of an opinion to the public, to a third party. For that opinion to carry more weight, you have to have quality control within your firm. Now, bear in mind, quality control standards don't apply to tax or consulting services because you are not providing any sort of assurance or attestation in these services. For a CPA firm, quality assurance include techniques applied to ensure. What's the purpose of the quality control? That the firm uphold its professional commitments. CPA are professionals. We want to make sure they are upholding that commitment to their client in a reasonable manner and not associate themselves with client or clients that lacks integrity. And that's the most important thing. You want to make sure you are vetting your clients before you take them on. Now, once you take the client, your first line of defense is not to take the client if the client lacks integrity. That's the purpose of the quality control, where you would close the door right at the beginning. But if you do take a client, you want to make sure you uphold your professional commitment. Every firm should document its quality assurance, protocols and practices, which is the audit quality control standards. There are 6 elements to the quality assurance framework, and we're going to discuss these 6 elements in this session. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, FarhatLectures.com. Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today. The 6 elements are leadership, which is the tone at the top, which is we already covered this in internal control, but now we're going to cover it in a different context. What does it mean, the tone at the top? Compliance with ethical requirements, policy for acceptance, new client and continuation of existing clients. You want to have a policy for that. Human resource policies, engagement performance, monitoring. Those are the elements of a quality control system in a given CPA firm. If you know anything about Farhat, what are we going to do next? We are going to discuss each of these elements separately, starting with the leadership element in the quality control system. Leadership, the tone at the top. Well, the firm, they have to foster from the top, senior management, board of directors, managers, a culture where quality is paramount in undertaken tasks, and they should have guidelines and processes that reinforce this culture. It's not only they're going to say this, they're going to have to kind of follow whatever they are claiming to say. Okay, for example, a firm might champion the belief that every financial statement, tax return, or audit report should reflect the highest standard of accuracy and compliance. And this is to reinforce this culture of quality. What would the firm do? Well, they would provide training and workshops on regular basis to keep employees updated with the latest accounting standard, tax laws, and best practices in financial reporting, if they're serious about this. Also, they should have multiple review system. Well, once the financial statements or the tax return is finished, we should have a quality review system within the firm to make sure it's undergoing multiple rounds of reviews by senior accountants and partner before they are finalized. For example, when I worked as a staff accountant, all my work was reviewed by a senior, and all my work and the senior's work was reviewed by a manager. And sometimes, if the work is critical, it would have been reviewed by either a director or a partner. At least they looked at it from a grand perspective, but there's a multiple level of reviews. And on top of all of this, what we should do as a firm, if we are serious about this, we should reinforce this idea in performance evaluation and compensation. So if employees are doing a good job, we should do what? Promote them, give them bonuses, compensate them to reinforce this culture of quality. The second element is the compliance with ethical requirement. Here, the firm will need to make sure that they have guidelines and processes to provide, again, reasonable guarantee, reasonable assurance that the firm itself, its employee, its staff, and any party related to the firm is bound by independence to remain impartial as mandated by ethical standard. And we're going to talk about independence much more in its own separate recording. But part of being ethical is being independent of the client. If you're performing an audit, you want to be independent. Otherwise, the value of your judgment, the value of your opinion does not carry much of a weight if you are associated with that client. Independence is very important in audit. How can the firm, as part of their quality control, reinforce this idea? Well, for example, every year, every partner and staff member is required to complete an independent survey addressing matters like equity holding and participation on directional boards. Simply put, we'll ask the clients, do you own stocks in companies that we audit? Are you on the board or are you involved in any type of management capacity at these companies? Every year or every 6 months, whatever is necessary, to reinforce this idea that independence is important for the firm. Also, accepting new client and having a policy for client continuation. Simply put, we don't want to associate ourselves with companies that lacks integrity or management that lacks integrity. We have to be very careful who are we dealing with. And that's one of the main purpose of quality control, is not to fall into that category. Okay. The guidelines for policies for accepting new clients should aim to reduce the possibility of partnering with clients whose leadership lacks integrity. Okay. Also, the firm should commit only to tasks that they can be executed with professional expertise. Also, don't take on clients where you cannot do the work. You don't have the expertise, the experience to do it. For example, take on auditing a software company and you don't have an IT person or a specialist, or maybe auditing an insurance company where you don't have an actuarial person on the staff. Well, you could always hire or contract them, but you have to do that. Okay. An example will be, for every potential client that we take on, a client assessment form must be compiled. We just don't accept the client. We have series of questionnaires. We need to sit down and make sure all the issues about this client are addressed. Addressing issues such as feedback from previous auditors. Why are they asking us to audit them? We need to know the opinion of the previous auditor. Appraisal of the management prior to the acceptance. How can we do that? We can hold face-to-face or Zoom meeting with management, specifically top management. And the goal of this is to understand their expectation and take a look to see if we can examine their integrity and business ethics. In some situations, some firms might, before taking on a client, investigate senior management if they suspect anything before taking them on a client. Human resources, policies and procedures to make sure the company has adequate workforce equipped with necessary skills, abilities, and dedication to ethical values. How do we do that? How can HR help? Well, before we hire a person, we do a background check, we do a credit check, we do a criminal check, we verify their educational claim, we ask for their degrees, we verify it. We might have a third party looking into this individual. We try to find if they are ethical or not. Any way, shape, or steps we can take before that individual comes on board. Now, what's that individual on board? We compensate them properly, we train them, we follow up on their evaluation. Okay? This is essential to carry out tasks in alignment with professional norms and relevant legal and regulatory framework. You want the workforce, you want your employees to be competent, skills, ethical, that can do the work. So every professional performance, what we should do, we should undergo assessment using unique evaluation report designed by the firm, and this should be reinforced by proper compensation, promotion, and reward. So we should reward the individual that did a good job as part of our HR policies. Engagement performance. Here the company must create protocols and processes to make sure there's a reasonable level of confidence that project, whatever that project is, audit or issuing a report, are conducted in alignment with professional norms and relevant legal and regulatory prerequisites. Basically, we are doing what we are supposed to do. Address any issues internally. If we don't have internal resources, address any issue externally. Assign the right people to the appropriate tasks so we can finish that performance in a professional manner. Also, the company should generate reports that are suitable for the given situation. Do we have the ability to generate that report? That's also part of the engagement performance. Also, for example, the Director of Accounting and Auditing is accessible for consultation and must provide approval for all engagement prior to their finalization. So if we want to conduct an engagement and finish it in a professional manner, well, having a director reviewing the work is a great idea as part of the quality control. Monitor or monitoring. Monitoring is a process, not a point in time. It's a continuous. Here the company needs to institute a monitoring procedure intended to offer also reasonable level of assurance. Notice I keep saying reasonable level, that the policies and procedures concerning the quality control system are relevant, sufficient, and functioning efficiently. And we don't do it once and we stop. We keep monitoring the process on a regular basis to make sure the quality control rules are adhered to. Example will be maybe an annual or as needed. The quality control partner is required to conduct tests on quality control procedures to verify that the firm is adhering to them. We can't just have quality control and let it go. People get tired, they become unhappy, they may change over time, so we have to go back and make sure people are adhering to audit quality control standard. Also, part of the quality control is something called the peer review. What is the peer review? Accounting firms operating in a public domain are obligated to participate in the AICPA Sanctioned Practice Monitoring Initiative. Now, when we say public domain, when we say AICPA, it means we are dealing with companies that audit private companies, commonly referred to as peer review, and this peer review is overseen by your state CPA societies. In other words, another CPA firm will review your work. This is what peer review is. And that review is being done under the eyes or the monitor by your state CPA society. Now, we have also firms also subject to the PCAOB. Remember, the PCAOB are the firms that audit public companies. That's fine. Firms subject to the PCAOB registration must undergo assessment also by the AICPA National Peer Review Committee for services that they provide to non-CPA clients. So we could have a firm, for example, PwC. They do work for public companies, but they also do work for private companies. Well, when they do the work for private companies, they also need to be reviewed through the AICPA. Now, the PCAOB, they have their own inspection, which is, we're not discussing the PCAOB. Audit practice and quality centers also, that's provided by the AICPA, has set up centers dedicated for enhancing the quality of audit practices, serving as a valuable resource. Again, the AICPA play a major role in enhancing auditing and accounting standard. There's the Center for Audit Quality, linked with the AICPA, functions as a public policy entity catering to investors, auditors of public companies, and the capital market. So you can go there and look up resources, research about audit quality. The center's objective is to instill trust in the audit procedure and further enhance the dependability and significance of the public company for investors. Simply put, to enhance the credibility of the audit. Now, the firm quality control is composed of many things. Now, I mentioned the system of the quality control of the firm, but also what could contribute to the audit quality control, the CPA exam. When you take your CPA exam, you're going to learn about rules, regulations you have to follow. That's part of the audit quality control. Auditing standards, they tell you exactly what to do, what to follow. This is part of the quality control. As you become a CPA, you have to take additional professional education. Continuing education requirement that leads to audit quality control. Legal liability. What happens is when you buy insurance, they force you to have quality control because they're not going to insure you unless you have a system to avoid being sued in the first place. AICPA practice and quality centers, we'll talk about. Code of Professional Conduct, also AICPA, which we'll talk about. PCAOB and the SEC, they both have rules and regulation that lead to audit quality control, increase audit quality control. Peer review, we just talked about, and the quality control itself. So notice in this session, we focus only on the quality control elements in a CPA firm, but that's not the only thing that lead to good audit quality control. We have a bunch of things, all of them working together will be in good shape. Let's take a look at an MCQ, a multiple choice questions about audit quality control from Farhat lectures. So we're looking at this question, and which of the following is an element of a CPA firm quality control system that should be taken into account when developing its quality control policies and procedures? So simply put, one of these answers, A through D, is an element of a CPA firm quality control that should be undertaken. Well, let's start with D. Take an audit risk and materiality into account. Well, when we perform an audit, we have to take audit risk and materiality into account. Is this part of our audit quality control? No, this is part of planning. Part of the planning process is to determine our audit risk, determine what the materiality, which will tell us how much work to do, when to do it, so on and so forth. So it's a good answer. We have to take audit risk into account and materiality into account, but not for quality control purpose. And this is the difficulty of the audit exam. All the answer choices will be correct, but you're looking for the correct one that's relevant to you. So D is a correct statement, but it doesn't serve me. So if you're not sure, if you're not comfortable with the topics, and this is what Farhat lecture does, it makes sure you are comfortable with the topics, because on the exam, they all look like good answers. You don't want to do that. So I can eliminate D. C, utilizing statistical sampling method. Is this part of the quality control system? Well, using statistical sampling method is simply a technique, a tool in your hand. You could use a software, you could use manual, you could use Excel, you could use statistical sampling method to perform an audit. That has nothing to do with the quality control system. It's a good practice, don't get me wrong, using statistical sampling method, but it doesn't serve our quality control system. Adhering to laws and regulation. Of course we have to adhere to laws and regulation. Whether we have quality control or not, basically B sounds really good because it's part of our internal control. One purpose of the internal control is to adhere to laws and regulations. So if you have any confusion about what internal control is, you might miss this question. You might miss the answer because it is a correct answer, but it has nothing to do with our quality control. Assigning appropriately experienced personnel to engagement. Is this part of the quality control? I would say yes. Remember, the quality control had 6 elements. Let's go back and review these elements. And I'm going to tell you under which element with assigning an individual. Well, I'm going to tell you right now. It's under the engagement performance where we assign the right people to the appropriate tasks. But you have to know the 6 elements of quality control, which is leadership, compliance with ethical standard, policy for accepting new client, HR policies, engagement performance, and assigning the right people to the assignments is engagement performance, as well as monitoring. What should you do now? You should go to Farhat lectures and look at additional MCQs, true, false, additional resources. That's going to help you understand audit quality. Audit quality. This is an important topic, whether you are a CPA exam candidate or an accounting student. Invest in yourself. Good luck and stay safe.